So when I started my architecture career in end of 2015, I was and working for $26 an hour. I was multiple six figures in debt with the master's in architecture from one of the best schools.
That the reason why the vast majority of people don't achieve success is not because of their lack of knowledge. Rather, it is the inability to act upon the knowledge that they do have. You don't get to a level where you're making multiple millions without a cost. There is a price to be had. You don't want shit in your life, but it's shit that makes the flowers grow. It's the manure that
Yeah.
makes the everything blossom.
The screens are like a mirror. It's a reflection. Your behaviors are all reflections of things that are going on in your life, and it reflects in your trading.
Hello, my name is Tom Hougaard. I'm the author of a book on trading mindset called Best Loser Wins. My publisher, it sounds terribly ponderous, doesn't it, to have a publisher? I'm I'm just getting used to that, but I do have a publisher, and he contacted me and he said, "There's this gentleman in America who wants to reach out to you." And this gentleman himself is a best-selling author, and I'd like to connect the two of you. And I said, sure, I'd love to. Spoke to David, and David and we came up with an idea that there was sufficient amount of overlap into our areas of expertise, but also sufficient amount of, shall we say, moving in different directions. David being a predominantly a stock trader, and me being predominantly an index, a futures index trader, but both with a strong money management, both with a strong psychological mindset, that we felt that a symposium of sort would be something that we would both incredibly benefit from an educational point of view. So we decided that we wanted to have a chit chat because we live about 16 hours flight from one another. So the friendship here has blossomed through phone conversations rather than actually having met each other. I have a series of questions for David. I think David will have some questions for me. So if you don't mind, David, would you mind if I kicked off and got the ball rolling?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So my first question to you, David, is when you trade stocks, are you selecting your stocks out of what you're seeing on a chart or what you read in the news? Or is there a third way that you identify stocks that you want to engage with?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the stocks come from, just being highly selective on what I trade. So like on the weekends, like now, today's Sunday, I
Mhm.
prepare for the week. And like the past couple of weeks or past couple of months, we've had a lot of like Bitcoin treasury stocks in the small cap space that have been exploding. So every once in a while, we have this new theme, whether it's AI, quantum computing, crypto, whatever it is. And now Bitcoin is like at all-time highs. So now a lot of stocks are trying to ride the waves of it. So I am predominantly a short selling trader. And so I want to stay out of the way of these themes that can run you over like a freight train. So I that's part of my criteria. Okay, stay away of the freight trains, like the hot themes. And then I have like my criteria is based on supply and demand. So I'm looking for stocks that are not too low of supply because those like afloat the outstanding shares are too low and those can squeeze, short squeezes. So my criteria is based on stocks that are like a controllable, very selective, or it's like a small niche of stocks that I can trade that won't, you know, give me a nasty outlier squeeze. That's what I'm going for. But like, once in a while, you can't help it. The market does what it does. But I'm trying my best to stay out of the way of these nasty squeezes. And so like my criteria is very strict. I like to describe it like a pilot doing a checklist. So I have like nine or 10 criterias. Sometimes I'll add some more and I'll just filter out stocks. And I have scanners every morning that filters it out for me. and I do my preparation on the weekends, on the off hours. So I know, Tom, with you, for example, you trade Forex markets, I believe. So those are 24/7, and so your process is different, with aligned with the 24-hour markets and different um exchanges all around the world. But mine, the market closes on the weekends and also from 4 p.m. Eastern, well, 8 p.m. Eastern with the after hours until 4 a.m. Eastern. So pretty soon it's going to be 24-hour trading. So for stocks. So I haven't planned for that yet, but yeah, I just filter
Yeah.
out my stocks and I plan ahead of time.
So my next question to you is going to be as a real outlier, and I want you to think carefully about it. Why do you prefer to sell short stocks?
Okay, so when I first started trading, I had no money. I had nothing. This is 2015, end of 2015. I was getting ready to graduate with my master's in architecture, and I had no money. And I ended up working at an architecture firm, making a few dollars an hour. This is like $26 an hour at the time. And I would drive Uber on the side to make extra money because living in LA is expensive. And you know, the small cap stocks, they just are more volatile. And a mentor I found on the internet had a couple of students that turned $10,000 into 1 million. I thought it was a scam. I didn't know, like, I was like, there's no way this is possible. And, I just looked into stock trading more and more, and I was like, okay, this profession is real. And I reached out to those two people, and they seem legit. I was like, all right, I'm gonna give this a shot. And yeah, at that time, it was predominantly a short selling strategy because short selling is a high probability strategy where, the small cap stocks are they're all junk stocks. They're on the market to get money investment from the public. And these are all bad companies that dilute their companies, their shares, and they end up going down over time. So it's a lot of selling pressure. They need money all the time. Very few of them succeed. So it's a high probability strategy. The only problem is that these stocks are very small in supply, so they have a lot of firepower. They squeeze really nasty. So without proper risk management, it's a risk for ruin. However, it changed my life completely because I had a very little money. I started with a $2,000 account and I practiced for 4 years, 2015, basically 2016, end of 2015. And 2020 is when I became profitable. And ever since 2020, I've just been excelling. But it took me four years of like that's where I put like my close to I would say 7 or 8 thousand hours of study time in 4.5 years trading with a small amount. And so short selling was just high probability. And, I understood the game at the time when I first started. The Wolf of Wall Street movie had just come out. And I didn't understand the movie, but I understood after studying, oh, this makes a lot of sense. They pumped the stock up, and then, if you're shorting it, because they're gonna dump the stock eventually, the manipulators. So that made a lot of sense to me to find these pump and dumps, and it was very easy for me to see that pattern. Rather, someone like me starting out, I was illiterate with stocks. I had no clue. But when someone pointed out this is the stocks go up and then they crash because someone's manipulating it like the Wolf of Wall Street and the movie came out. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So that got me started. I mean, I don't trade pump and dumps. It's part of my playbook. I have a strategy for that, but I'm not primarily trading that these days. But I did have a chip on my shoulder about I when I graduated with my master's, I was in a lot of student loan debt, and that's something you guys in Europe don't have. I don't think you have that. That problem is over there, but in the United States, it's a big problem. The student loan debt, like you get these really good degrees, architecture, law, doctor, and they all it's taboo. No one really talks about it, but they're all graduating in a lot of debt. And I had multiple six figures of debt. So when I started my architecture career in 2000, end of 2015, I was and working for $26 an hour. I was multiple six figures in debt with the master's in architecture from one of the best schools. So I had a huge chip on my shoulder. So I was like, okay, so if these guys are making so much money off manipulating stocks, like it's a big joke, and I did everything the right way, and I'm getting screwed. So with student loans, so like I had this chip on my shoulder, almost like it like I was like a mad scientist, like finding these pump and dumps, and like I felt like a the Batman looking for vengeance. Like, that's what like short selling. Like I'm doing some good for the markets by short selling these scams. And many years later, 2021, I had the opportunity to work with a short report firm. The trading journey led me that direction, and we exposed a few scams. And I even went to Colombia. It's in my upcoming book as well. That's a chapter in my book. That's a really nice chapter. Um, and it's where I went to Colombia to expose a cannabis scam. I flew into Bucaramanga, a remote city in Colombia, known for parasailing. That's where they had the cultivation facility. And I went there with a pen camera and a motorcycle. I documented everything. I encountered cartel. And yeah, so I became, it's like for so long, I was like, I studied short selling and these pump and dumps and these scammers that eventually I became the sort of Batman character, like it just manifested into like that. And then I exposed the cannabis scam. We did a report. Stock crashed, it was a success, and did several of those. But like short selling, what I did was, just wanted to master short selling, just like I mastered architecture. I had the master's degree from architecture, 10 years of architecture. I approached trading like that, and I decided short selling made a lot of sense to me. It's highly probable. Patterns are easy to recognize, and it's been done before. I had a couple examples. I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And if I treat this like a true profession, like I treat architecture like in school, I can do it. And I was right, many years later, I'm very proud of myself out the way I approached it, like with rigor and study and like and just giving trading like, that focus instead of treating it like I see early on I was turned off about how traders approach trading like with the Lamborghinis and the tattoos and and all this materialistic materialism and it's that's the wrong way to do it. That's like for example any other profession you don't that doesn't work. So it came across as a scam and the way I approached it ended up being the correct way and I'm trying to you know I think that the same thing with you, the way you approach trading, Tom. So the way you approach it with your mindset, and you're not showing Lamborghinis and stuff. So like I think this is the correct way, and if people um got to know that more, maybe I don't know that it would change. That trading wouldn't be as taboo as people think. So like because early on when I used to talk about trading to my architecture colleagues or my family and friends, they thought I was crazy. So it shouldn't be like that.
I have had a couple of sports cars in my life, and when you're 6'3", you can barely fit into them. Your ass is scraping the asphalt. You don't feel secure. So my love for sports car was short and brief and entirely unfulfilled. And so I prefer an SUV where I'm sat 3 feet up in the air and I feel safe. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you had your six three
I,
is so you're telling me you couldn't fit. It was very uncomfortable
yeah,
in the
my
sports
my
car.
my knees were driving rather than my hands. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's overrated.
Um, yeah, well, I suppose the irony of wealth is not entirely lost on me. I'm 55 years old now, and I will say with the utmost sincerity that the irony of having made myself wealthy from trading is that I almost wish that I could live my life in reverse so that I had the money when I was young and I could have bought the things that I thought was fun when I was in my 20s and my 30s, beautiful watch, uh, a lovely penthouse somewhere, a, a lovely sports car, a Porsche, an Audi, my particular brands of choice. But then as you grow older, I find that I spend less now than I did when I had very little. And the things that I really want in life can't be bought. You can't buy a six pack. You have to work for it. And six packs are made in the kitchen, as well in the gym, but mostly in the kitchen. It means you have to curtail some of your natural impulses, such as eating, which is a natural impulse, of course, because the mind wants you to stay alive. So I found that successful trading in many respects is doing the very opposite of what my natural free-flowing mind wants to do. And one of the questions that I am dealing with in, interestingly, my upcoming book, and when I say upcoming book, I started writing on Best Loser Wins in 2015, which was a real break year for me. The year where I really began to accelerate my earnings to the point where I was far surpassing what I had made in previous years. But it took me 7 years to really complete the book. And when I handed it in to the publisher, it was 350,000 words, to which they replied, "That's too much." And I had to cut it down to 80,000. But I found that the question that I keep circling around, and it fits into the conversation that you and I are having. And interestingly, I would love to talk to you about shorting more because when I started trading many years ago, I don't consider myself having a negative disposition. Quite the opposite. Although I am not one of those whimsical optimists either. I work by stealth and I know exactly what I want and I'll work towards that. But I had a great love for shorting immediately. There was something about shorting, David, that just resonated with me right off the bat. The idea of being able to be on the other side of the masses. Um, but the question that, and I'll get to the point now, is why is it that the vast majority of people that engage with the financial markets, they fail? They fail to achieve their goals. They most likely lose money, some a lot, some just a little. Some study every weeknight, every weekend, all hours, but they never really achieve success. And I have come to the conclusion that the reason why the vast majority of people don't achieve success is not because of their lack of knowledge. Rather, it is the inability to act upon the knowledge that they do have and an overt, an overriding survival mechanism, such as when you are in a bad position, you hold on to it because hope dies last. And so I found that when I had, it sounds a little ponderous, so forgive me, but when I had reprogrammed my mind and how I danced with risk, and in particular how I danced with losing, everything changed for me. Not my not my hit ratio. My hit ratio didn't change particularly. No, it was the size that I traded, and in particular the size that I traded when I was right. So I am particularly looking forward to meeting you face to face in Los Angeles in October because I think what we will be giving people, and I at least I speak for myself here, but I have uh, a very strong sense that what is going to happen is that there will be this synergy, and the people who will be attending will realize that it isn't so much the strategy that you are trading that will make you or break you, but rather what goes on between your two ears whilst you are in positions. Is there anything here that you resonate with, David, that you want to comment on?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the parts of your book, Best Loser Wins, you talk about, doing what everyone's not doing. And that one, it clicked right away. So when I read your book, I had these thoughts for a long time. And then when I read your book, it confirmed it. I was, wow, okay. It's like, I've seen some articles out there. It ranges from 90% of traders fail within a certain amount of time in the first couple of years, all the way to 96%, some studies. So it's like you got to align yourself with the successful people are doing. They're doing, and a lot of that has to do with the mind. So it's just these small things that everyone's not doing. So that's constantly in I'm constantly aware of this. So like, what am I doing with my weekend? What am I doing with my, you know, everything? Like journaling trades. Like I got to be what's the 4% of successful traders, or even the traders that are doing exceptionally well, maybe even 1% of traders, what are they doing? I need to be aligned with what they are doing. So, you know, it's just a lot of that is, like it starts to really go down to a lot of details, like really exact details of like how the risk management is, how to accept losses. Like you look at I don't know how you feel about like the athletes like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Like, okay, like Michael Jordan has there's a commercial out there somewhere where he said, I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed, so he even, these athletes, they are successful 40% of the time, they fail 60% of the time. Like, what's their mentality with losses? Maybe that aligns with that 1% of successful traders. What are those 1% of successful traders? What's their mindset for losses? And then then with all that comes with, once you're able to master that, you can push more size. So yeah, what'd you think about that, Tom?
I
Any thoughts
think
there?
that's really interesting because, and I'd like to be very specific here, but I also know that what I'm about to say may be a little controversial. So at least hear me out.
Okay.
So I've studied both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, but more so Kobe Bryant than Michael Jordan. And, study a Mamba mindset. But uh, uh, what I found about, in particular, Michael Jordan, but not so much confirmed by Kobe Bryant, was that, and here comes the controversial bit, they aren't overly nice people. Uh, and maybe that's what comes with the territory when you are in the NBA. Maybe you never really know who's your friend and who's your foe. But I found that that was an aspect of my personal development that I didn't want to evolve into. And and please don't for one second think that I want to be friends with everybody and then I walk around like a smiling Ted Lasso, thinking that everything is hunky dory and all is well. But I find that I frequently have to compartmentalize my life. And in order to do my job very well, and and to those who don't know me, I don't sell courses. All the royalties that I receive from my book goes uncut to charity. I study homeless. It's well documented. Sleeping bags, soup kitchens, trucks for food deliveries. I support children with epilepsy, handicapped children with epilepsy, and buying them very expensive medicine, cannabis and medicine. I support handicaps, all children, um, because I need an antidote to that person that I need to be when I am trading. Because I find that that person that I am when I'm trading is not necessarily the person that I want to identify with and to hang out with if I was somehow able to hang out with myself. And I find that, and in particular as I'm getting older, that I also want to have a balanced life. Now, I was of the belief that if you found something that was worth doing, it was worth overdoing. and I would lead the balanced life to the losers. And it worked for me, but at great cost. Uh, Friendships, relationships, and perhaps also from a holistic spiritual point of view, you are shutting yourself out if you are overtly focused on making money as your primary objective in life. Um, and so if I was anything I would like to do differently, I wouldn't be to cut down on my work hours or on my focus, but I would perhaps uh, make sure that some of the things that I sacrificed, I didn't sacrifice. And I know it may seem like an emotional topic to talk about, and it is, but I think it's also really important for anybody who sees this is that you don't get to a level where you're making multiple millions without a cost. There is a price to be had. And that price is a price that I would pay it any day. But with maturity, I find that I am much I'm much better at teaching today than I ever was. And as I said, I don't even have revenues on my YouTube channel. Every penny that I use to, buy the milk and the eggs that comes from trading. And so I know what it's like to show up every single day. And I find that if my mind is not aligned, if the conscious and the subconscious is not aligned, I might as well just walk. I might as well just walk, Dave, and go and do something else until I got that, shall we say, alignment, that killer instinct back. And fortunately, if you don't mind me expounding a little, I have a Telegram channel with 50,000 followers. It's a free one, obviously. And on any given day, I will receive approximately 500 messages. And what I found is that there are people in this world who are far superior to me when it comes to technical analysis. They know about supply and demand like you do, much, much better than I do. They know about all the patterns, all the formations. But it's as if they are masters of everything. But yeah, well, what is the jack of all trades? I think it's the expression you use. English is not my mother tongue, it's my second language. Um, so I might be getting that saying wrong. It does happen. But I find that knowledge without the will to act upon is pointless knowledge, is just knowledge. And if you're asking me, why do I want to come to Los Angeles and work with you? This will be one of two speaking engagements I'm doing all year. And I found that since I'd never been to Los Angeles, I thought it would be a fantastic opportunity to see that part of the world. But perhaps more importantly, it would be an opportunity for me to relate on a much more personal level and change lives. I firmly believe that anybody that I come into contact with and that can hear what I say and sense the message that I'm trying to get across will walk away with a much better understanding of what it means to be a professional trader. I liken this, and I'll let you speak now. I'm sorry if I'm rambling on, but
No, no, for sure.
I liken it a little bit to someone playing golf or tennis on a Sunday with his best friend. And we can all make some master shots when we're, swinging or putting the golf club or the racket. But can you do the same when you're under pressure? Because when you're under pressure, everything changes. Your 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 perception changes. You get tunnel vision. You are being guided by your shall we say your monkey brain. Your amygdala is in overdrive. Your adrenaline, and all of these things. will actually work against you unless you know how to do it. And you have to understand here is we were talking about performance this year. I have traded live on YouTube now for 6 months. This year I'm on a break at the moment. And I like to be honest with you why I'm on a break, but we can come to that in a second. Um, I'm up 800% in 6 months with a max drawdown of 9%. And so what's much more important to me than technique is consistency in mind, the application. And I find that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, they had something that they could tap into whenever they needed to. And I have the same. When it really counts, I have something that I can tap into at will. And that's what I would terribly love to discuss with you. I mentioned earlier that there's a cost. I'm not afraid to admit to anybody that I had somewhat of a mental setback, not from trading, but from the amount of messages that I received. And I found that you hear a lot of high performers talk about mental health. And I always thought, yeah, mental health, fine. But I began to become overtly uh, influenced by the thousands of messages I would get every month, in particular when they were people doing what I call a hit and run. Hit and run would be someone who would send you a message, Dave, and say, Dave, you look like an absolute fucking idiot. You can't trade for shit, and your penis is small. And you're thinking, well, fine, you laugh at something like that. But if you receive a handful of messages like that a day, or as in my case, experienced, I had people put homophobic messages up on various bulletin boards about me, or put my face on top of or transpose my image onto homosexual um, um, images in the act. I found that I didn't ask for this, and I needed to step back and actually learn a whole new art in the appreciation of self-talk and self-love, something I had never experienced before in my life. And the most people I spoke to, they said, "Oh, just ignore it." But I find that actually the way that our mind operates is we can't just ignore something like this. Especially we can't if it's something that we find is, shall we say, skewing the balance of justice. And I began to tie it into how I also perceived myself when I was trading, and especially if I was losing. And so, the reason why I am bringing this sensitive topic into our conversation is because I leave no stone unturned when it comes to trading. And I am absolutely fearless when it comes to going to areas where people will say, "Oh, I don't want to discuss this because it's sensitive to me." And so, what is the whole point of everything that I have just spoken about? The reality is that I find that when you trade well, you also become a significantly better human being. And I have found that through my trading and through the study of my behavior, I have become significantly more sensitive and emphatic and patient with other human beings. And so my life philosophy is that I cannot take the many, many millions of pounds that I have made in my career. I can't take it with me. The only thing I can take with me are my life experiences. Everything else gets lacked at the exit door. So for me, me meeting you is simply also a part of that journey a journey of meeting another human being who himself had been through struggle. Because, David, struggle is the way. It is through our struggles that we grow. There's this famous saying that, you don't want shit in your life, but it's shit that makes the flowers grow. It's the manure that
Yeah.
makes the everything blossom. And so I would be I would be remit as a mentor to many to not discuss these things because it's in there that the real gems for our growth is. I'll shut up now. I'm really sorry. I get carried away, and it tends to be. I love to steer the direction away from, oh, it's about technical analysis, about moving averages, stochastic Bollinger Bands. It's about, supply and demand. And actually, yeah, but how many people in your world do you not know that knows absolutely everything about technical analysis, but that doesn't mean that they can afford next month's rent? I know too many of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking about this with a friend the other day. This analysis paralysis. Why there's so many smart people that know all this stuff, but they can't apply it. Like when it comes to trade, they're deer in the headlights. But one thing you said, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love trading. And I know we spoke about the Mamba mentality. I'm with you there, man. I'm with you there. But I love Kobe for that though. We're in LA. Kobe's in LA. They just put a statue of him. You're gonna see it. I'm gonna take you there.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. So, but he had that Mamba mentality, and like even Game 6, he won Game 6 and Game 7. It's not it's not guaranteed they're gonna win it. And the reporter asked Kobe, "Aren't you happy that you won Game 6?" And he said, I'm not happy till it's finished. So till the job's done. So,
Yeah.
um. But yeah, I love trading because it forced me to become better at a lot of as a human, So, and when you're trading well, is like it's that's when it's showing the most. And but when you're not trading well, you gotta work on things. It just shows you gotta work on a lot more things internally, and it's just my whole. I'm like a different person from before trading and after trading. 'Cause I came into trading in my early 30s. I didn't even know what trading was before. So I was almost like this unconscious person going through the routines of a 9 to 5 or a society programmed into me. And then trading forced me. If I wanted to make trading work, I had to improve a lot of areas of my life. It's like I'm a completely different person. It's like a different version of myself that's way better. So and I love trading for that, So yeah, I'm glad you point that out, So it really does force you to become the screens are like a mirror, it's a reflection. Your behaviors are all reflections of things that are going on in your life, and they reflects in your trading. And when you're trading well, it's like your life, just life is 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 good. So with all aspects of life. So yeah, I love that, man. So yeah, that was great that you went off and spoke, man. People love to hear you speak, Tom. That's why your book is so good.
Thank you very much. Hey, got a little funny anecdote for you. So I'm out shopping for a barbecue, and I have this epiphany as I'm walking around this. I guess you would call it a hardware store. Would you call it that?
Yeah, here in the
Yeah.
States
Okay.
we call it a hardware store.
Yeah. So I was walking around this hardware store looking at these barbecues, and that's when I had this epiphany because I was looking at a barbecue and it said, this is costing $600. Oh, wait. But next to it, there was another barbecue. But this one, they had two prices, but then they sort of crossed the first price out. And this one, there was $1,000, but now it was $600. But remember, the first one I looked at just cost $600. It didn't have any other price. And there were two different barbecues. And it occurred to me that we human beings, we need comparison in our lives. We need the night to appreciate the day. We need adversity to appreciate the good times. Because if it was all good times, we would just take it for granted. And we need to, if I just had one barbecue to choose from, I wouldn't be able to make a selection with my mind because my mind has to have an antidote. It has to have a comparison. And and so as I'm standing there in that hardware store, I'm beginning to think, but that's exactly what happens when a stock that used to trade at $50 and now it trades at $40. And this supermarket mentality, I recognized that when I worked as a broker back from 2000 to 2009. I was sitting on a trading desk. And when you're sat on a trading desk, David, it's actually the one experience that I think that has shaped me better than anything else. But you can get the benefit from what I was saying without having to work at a trading floor with the culture that comes with that. It is that you found that when the market was falling, any market, people would begin to buy. There would be this mentality of, wow, this barbecue used to be $1,000. Now it's only $500. That's cheap. That's a bargain. So you contextualize value. And I find that everything in around us can only uh, we can only attach value to something that we can compare it with. I'm with my current girlfriend. She's much better than my previous girlfriend. Okay, sorry, that was fictitious. I wouldn't want to knock anybody. My current car, my current house is because everything that we do has to be derived from a comparison with something else. And I'm bringing this story to you because I just wanted to perhaps uh, try to dial our narrative, our conversation back to where you started. Mm, Because I asked you a question, and the question was, what is it about you that makes you resonate with being a short seller? Because I don't know if people can see this. This is one of my I use a lot of visualization, but it's basically just a cardboard with charts. And these are my old trades. And I sit there. Actually, it's a rather sobering experience there. We just sit and you go, yes, so you bought the high of the day. Well done. Or, wow, you shorted the low tick of the day. That is astounding trading, Tom. So I have hundreds of these cardboards that I use for mental practice. But anyway, you can probably make out on this chart here that this market is going down. And what I found so interesting about you and I is that I actually have absolutely no problem selling short something that has already fallen. I think it's one of my great uh, traits as a trader is that a market can be down 1%, and I'm not beginning to think, oh, I wonder if a low is near. Rather, I'm thinking, well, if it can fall 1%, it can fall another percent. And so I wanted to ask you, if you like shorting, which you are self-proclaimed uh, aficionado of shorting, and I'm all for it. But how do you deal with the natural the proclivity, our natural inclination towards seeking out value? Would you like to attempt to answer that question?
Okay, so yeah, so first, I don't the, most of my shorts, I don't chase things down. However, I have indicators and certain ways of reading the stock that confirms the backside, and that's when I like to enter. Now as far as that question, okay, so the comparison. So like when a stock is going down, you're saying like people are gonna come potentially start buying because they perceive it as a cheaper. And is that okay? So if that's the case, okay. People are dip buying, let's say, or that's gonna an area of support. So I'm looking for a support level. I'm looking for volume demand to come in. And if I see that, um, I'm gonna wait to short it. Maybe I'll short it off bounces from that. So I'm mostly as a short seller, these days, short selling is getting with stocks, it's getting, especially with mid caps and small caps, it's getting like to be an overcrowded space, so you have to know more than the next guy, definitely a lot
Do
more. So it's become,
May I interrupt you here?
sure.
Do you find that your area of operation has changed?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my God, it's changed tremendously. So in